The night before my wedding, someone slipped a VIP resort key card under my door. The room number was the same suite where Xavier had proposed to me 3 years ago. I thought it was a romantic surprise he had arranged, but when I pushed open the door, I saw him naked, tangled with another woman on the bed. Xavier finally pulled out of her, taking his time. He lit a cigarette and smiled through the smoke. I didn't want to keep hiding this from you anyway. I wanted you to find out tonight so I wouldn't have to explain after the wedding. He flicked the ash. Don't worry, you're still my only wife. You've been with me for 10 years. Who else would take a worn-out wife like you now? Tomorrow everything goes as planned. The wedding is yours, but the marriage certificate goes to her. He thought I would at least scream, cry, beg. I just quietly slid the engagement ring off my finger, dropped it on the nightstand next to her panties, and walked out. The next morning, Xavier waited for me at the church in his groom suit. I didn't run. I walked right up to him on the arm of his sworn business rival, the marriage certificate already in my hand. The wedding ceremony is yours. The marriage certificate. I gave it to him. She's coming. The bride is finally coming out. A swarm of reporters had gathered outside the church. Miss Olivia, how do you feel on your wedding day? Miss Olivia, what do you think about the wedding of the century Mr. Xavier prepared for you? I didn't answer. I slipped into the car under the bodyguard's escort. Xavier stood on the steps in his white groom suit, wearing the smile of a man who had everything between his legs and everything in his name. That morning he had called to tell me he had fucked Windsor 7 times last night. His body was wrecked. He couldn't come pick up his bride. He was certain I would still come anyway. His friend Matthew was the first to whistle. She still came. Matthew nudged Xavier with his elbow, his face full of crude amusement. Xavier's got the magic touch. 7 rounds the night before the wedding, and the bride still shows up in her gown. That's what I call having a woman trained. Another friend chimed in. The way he went at it last night, anyone else would be in a wheelchair, but Xavier can still stand here as the groom. Several of them laughed. Xavier's lips curved. His tone was casual. Olivia's been with me for 10 years. Used goods. Besides marrying me, who else would want her? He glanced down at the engagement ring I had returned the night before. Throwing a little tantrum is normal, but in the end she will still walk up to me, kneel, and put her hand in mine. Matthew gave him a thumbs up. The car door opened. I stepped out in my white dress. A flash of genuine amazement crossed Xavier's eyes. His voice softened for a moment. Olivia looked so beautiful in a wedding dress. But before he could touch my hand, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the name on the screen. His lips unconsciously curved. He stepped aside to take the call. What's wrong, sweetheart? Didn't I tell you to call me later? A lazy, coquettish voice purred through. Xavier, I'm flying abroad this afternoon. I booked us a marriage registration in 10 minutes. Come to City Hall. I want the certificate before I leave. 10 minutes. Xavier chuckled. So eager to be my wife. After hanging up, Matthew walked over. Who was that? Windsor. Xavier slipped the phone into his pocket, his eyes lighting up. She won't leave the country without my last name. She's being so sweet I can't say no. What about the wedding here? What's the rush? The ceremony takes an hour or 2. I'll go to City Hall first. It's a 10-minute signature. You know Windsor's personality. If I don't humor her, she'll actually cry in front of an entire airport terminal. Matthew wisely said nothing. Xavier walked over, slipped his arm around my shoulder and motioned to the photographer. Come on, take a quick shot for the memories. Click, done. He glanced at his watch. All right, I've got to go or I'll miss the slot. He turned and strode toward another car. Xavier. I stood my ground and called after him. He paused and looked back. His expression still carried that careless confidence of someone who held all the cards. If you leave today, I said word by word, I will replace the groom at this wedding. He froze for half a second, then laughed in my face. Replace the groom. Where would you find one? You think life is a fucking TV drama. Everyone in Seattle knows you're mine. Used, stamped, stained with my name. Of course, if you actually have the ability to find someone who dares marry a woman who's been under me for 10 years, I wouldn't mind letting you try. He opened the car door and tossed back a casual quip. Stop making a scene. Be good and wait for me. The other women are just toys. You're the wife. The groomsmen exchanged glances. Matthew chased after him. Xavier, are you actually leaving? You all hold down the fort. It's not like I'm not coming back. Windsor's too clingy. Won't let me out of bed unless I sign the paper first. The car pulled away. I stood where I was, the hem of my dress lifting in the wind. The photographer beside me held his camera, standing awkwardly. No one spoke. I looked down at my empty ring finger and slowly curved my lips into a smile. Xavier, go ahead. Go register your child bride. This multi-million-dollar wedding of the century, I will gladly accept it. I lifted my dress and walked into the church. Guests were seated. The officiant was in position. The wedding march was playing, the white rose waterfall by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the crystal bead curtains hanging from the dome. Even the font on the guest place cards had been specially designed by a typographer Xavier had hired from Italy. Everything was perfect, except the groom wasn't there. Matthew caught up to me with a forced smile. Olivia, Xavier has an urgent matter. He'll be back soon. Another groomsman, Edward, came over. Xavier always knows what he's doing. It's your big day. He'll definitely be back soon. Several of them chimed in, trying to make the groom running off mid-wedding to fuck another woman sound like he had just gone to pick up a package. Okay, I will wait for him. I sent them off calmly. I would wait. But who I was waiting for was none of their business. In the dressing room, my best friend Barbara, who had flown from Australia to be my bridesmaid, was shaking with rage. Is Xavier sick in the head? Running off to get a marriage certificate with another woman on his wedding day. Did his brain get caught in a fucking door? When you two were planning this wedding together, he searched every flower shop in the city just to pick the perfect bouquet for you. When you tried on wedding dresses, his eyes got red faster than yours. I was so jealous of you I got sour and beat up my clueless boyfriend. Who could have imagined he would turn around and stick it in some fresh-out-of-college princess? Barbara paused, her voice dropping. Olivia, stop waiting. You should live for yourself for once. I didn't respond. I just looked down at my phone. On Instagram, Windsor had just posted a new update. The photo showed Xavier's shirt and Windsor's lingerie scattered on the floor of the hotel suite. A used condom wrapper visible in the corner of the frame. Caption. Someone said he would only come for 10 minutes, but he came a lot more than that. She had deliberately tagged the location. It wasn't City Hall. Windsor replied to a comment below. Whoever is standing around in a wedding dress with no groom to wait for can get mad. Maybe she should learn to keep a man satisfied next time. I expressionlessly took a screenshot. Windsor was the only daughter of an investor. Fresh out of college, 22 years old, tight body, daddy issues, everything Xavier liked. Ever since they had met at a celebration banquet, his eyes hadn't been right. He had spent the rest of that night with his hand high on her thigh under the table. After 10 years together, if I didn't understand him, I wouldn't have lasted this long. So I chose to believe him through many ambiguous moments, through many late nights with no replies, through the lipstick stains he claimed came from a client hug. But Barbara was right. He had faked it so well, faking it until the day before the wedding to finally tear off that last layer of disguise, using the cruelest method to make me see with my own eyes, hear with my own ears, what he really thought of me. I walked toward the balcony at the end of the hallway for some air. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard several men's voices inside. The groomsmen were hiding there smoking. Wait, Xavier's really not coming back. He said Windsor's riding him so hard he can't get up. He told us to stall. Matthew exhaled smoke. How long do you think Olivia's temper can hold out? Look at her today. Wedding dress on, red carpet walked, groom ran off to fuck someone else, and she didn't even furrow her brow. A wife like that, what more could a man want? Edward sighed. Xavier really doesn't know how good he has it. That little fox Windsor knows things in bed Olivia probably never learned. Several of them laughed. Then someone made a video call. Xavier, you finally picked up. Olivia's still waiting. Wet, unmistakable sounds came from the other end of the phone. A woman's high-pitched moan. Can't you see I'm fucking busy? Xavier's voice carried the rough edge of arousal. I can't come back. Just take care of the relatives and friends. Okay, Xavier, you do your thing, Matthew said with a sleazy grin. Olivia's way easier to deal with anyway. Before he finished speaking, I pushed open the balcony door. The smiles froze on their faces. Matthew hid the phone behind him. Olivia. I looked at them. The wedding starts in 3 minutes. There are over 300 guests sitting out there. Are you going to make them wait or let them watch this farce? Olivia, stop making a scene. Edward laughed. 3 minutes is enough. Xavier's not that fast. He can't finish. He's been at her for hours. It is enough. I calmly cut him off, then turned and left. Only then did Matthew remember the video was still on. Xavier, Olivia says the wedding starts in 3 minutes. You better hurry. Xavier's low laugh came through the phone. Breathless. 3 minutes. Does this woman have some kind of misunderstanding about me? I don't rush. A woman's slick giggle came through the receiver, followed by a wet, deliberate sound. Xavier. So. The other end was silent for 2 seconds. Go ahead and help me hold down the scene. I'll come over when I'm done. I'm halfway through a round and I don't leave a woman hanging. As he spoke, Windsor's coquettish moan came through in the background. Matthew quickly hung up the video call. The groomsmen straightened their suits and walked out of the balcony. Edward caught up to me quietly. Olivia, after all these years, we all know about you and Xavier. He does care about you in his heart. Men, you know. The body and the heart are different things. I didn't look at him or respond. The church door slowly opened. Someone stood in the backlight. Then every smile froze. A man in a black tuxedo stepped through the door. Tall, sharp jaw, eyes cold as a knife edge. Lucas Wright, the groom's biggest enemy in the shipping industry. The man Xavier had spent the last 5 years trying to bury, sue, and ruin. He walked straight down the aisle toward me and offered his arm. The whole hall went dead silent. Olivia. He looked at me, his voice low and even. The car is outside. The judge is waiting. I slid my hand into the crook of his elbow. Matthew stumbled back a step, his face white. Olivia. What the fuck are you doing? What is he doing here? I turned and looked at the 300 guests in the church. Xavier sends his deepest apologies. He had an urgent appointment at City Hall this morning. He has been balls deep in Miss Windsor for the last 2 hours and will be marrying her in approximately 7 minutes. A wave of gasps swept the room. I lifted my dress. Since the wedding has already been paid for, it would be a waste not to use it. So I am keeping the ceremony. I am keeping the cake. I am keeping the 300 guests. I am keeping the venue. I am just changing the groom. I walked down the aisle with Lucas. The wedding march played behind me. Matthew was frantically dialing Xavier's number, his hands shaking so badly he kept missing the screen. The call went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, across town, Xavier had just rolled off Windsor and was reaching for his belt. You are really leaving. Windsor sat on the bed wrapped in sheets, her thighs still slick. You promised to stay with me all day. I only agreed to postpone the certificate because of that. And now you're leaving while I'm still soaking. I have to go. Xavier picked up his jacket. She only gave me 3 minutes. What temper? Windsor pouted. Isn't she the most understanding wife in Seattle? Understanding is one thing, but today is different. Xavier wiped a smudge of her lipstick off his neck. The wedding of the century. I promised her that. Then why did you come here? Didn't you insist? Xavier smiled, walked over and pinched her cheek. Be good. Spread for me again tonight when I get back. Windsor swatted his hand away. When will the certificate be postponed to? We will see. Xavier answered vaguely, picking up his phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up. Messages were exploding, all from the friend group. Voice messages, one after another. The last one was a video from Matthew. He frowned and tapped it open. His eyes widened.